So I have just sketched in a few more of these characters. I don't know if you can see it like that. Alright, and I'm now going to start washing in. We call it a wash, a watercolour wash, because it uses a lot of water. So I'm going to go with this brown colour here. I'm going to take some of the colour and put it in the tin. I don't know if you can see that. And we're going to make it very watery. And we're just going to very lightly work our way into the outline. And the thing with these paintings that we're looking at today is that they are based on layers, so we're layering a lot of colours on top of each other, and that often means that you've got to work quickly and on top of each other, on top of each colour. So some bits are going to be darker than the other. So I've still got this umbrella here, and I'm using a sort of a blue colour for that one. So let's work into that. I'm going to make that a little bit darker here and over here as well. Now in the original picture there is somebody actually bending over here like that. So I might just quickly sketch that person in because I haven't got him in. They're kind of bending over, and that you can just see their little feet sticking out there. And that is quite a grey colour, so I've got some nice grey here. I'm going to work into that, and again I'm layering up over here, just like this. So we've got two layers like that, where that person is kind of bending over. And the colour gets darker there because that is where it's overlapping. Now the next person is almost like a red. Let's try and get some of this nice red-brown colour. And they're going to be here. In fact, I'm looking at it, it's a little bit darker than that, so let's work into it here. And again, keeping it very sort of wet, loose paint. I'm looking at the colours there. Alright, so I can see how they're overlapping. I keep kind of referring back to there and again layering it up over the top. So let's build in that part of him, and that person is also a little bit sort of blending into the umbrella. The umbrella is a bit blue, much more blue than the other umbrella. So let's do that. And again, got a bit of an overlap here where that other person's umbrella is kind of blending in. It's changing colour a little bit there. So each time you're just kind of adapting the colour, you're changing the colour a little bit. I've also got a bit of a background as well. Now the man at the front is quite dark, but we're going to go a little bit darker for the next person, who is this purpley person. Let's try and build his colour up a little bit. And you can see that I'm dipping my paintbrush into the water, dipping it into the colour, and then mixing it on the tray, to get the colour that I want. And then I'm bringing it back here and building up that. So I don't want it too dark yet because my darkest colour is going to be the man in the front. So there's that person's leg, that's quite dark there. You can see that bit that I'm doing. There's his leg. And other man's leg was just here. Let's get his leg in a little bit. Let's water that down. Okay. Now the man at the front, this man, the dark man holding the umbrella, that's who I'm going to work on now. But also behind him, I've got the bit of the umbrella there, so I might just go back and do that part whilst I've still got the colour. And that is that purpley colour again. So there we working it in like that. Alright, so now we're ready to do the man at the front with his big umbrella. And he is a kind of a greenish colour, bluish green colour. So I'm going to try and get his coat. He's got quite a dark coat, this Mick. Sometimes you can actually mix, whilst the colours are wet, you can mix them actually on the page. So I'm going to have some of these greens and blues here. So watercolour is quite hard to use at first because it hasn't got as much control over it as acrylic. Acrylic is much thicker, and watercolour, if you add two colours together, they will blend in together, and sometimes you want that, and sometimes you kind of want to avoid that happening. But you can kind of play around with watercolour a bit because it does float into other colours. You can kind of mix on the page. So there's the man who's got, I'm going to make his face a sort of slightly browner colour here. I think he might be wearing a hat. Let's make that a hat there. Okay, so he's holding his umbrella. Let's make that umbrella blue. There's the handle of the umbrella. Work into this a little bit more. And you can see that you can keep actually adding colour on when it's wet or when it's dry. You can add on. So afterwards, if you're not really happy with what you've done, you can keep adding to it. You can add more sort of shades to it. Now I can see the other umbrella through there, so I'm going to just make that part a bit darker here. Okay, so you can see we've kind of built up the colour, and even around in the background we've got some sort of murky shades here of things that are happening. And down by their feet as well, where they're standing, you can put a little bit. A good technique is to make the page really wet and then work into it with the watercolour. So when you have proper watercolour paper, it actually can soak in a little bit more. We're just using normal cartridge paper, which is what your sketchbook is, but it still has, you can still get that effect. Okay, so that was a very kind of quick version. There is the original. Alright, and then here, bring mine round, is my very quick sort of 5-minute version. And once that dries, I could work into that a little bit more. Like already I can see things that I'm not really that happy with. I could quite like to kind of soften that a little bit more if I'm comparing it to that one. That's a little bit too dark. So you can keep working into it, keep looking at it, thinking about what you've done, and changing it. Okay, so there's your watercolours with your water. Alright, so I'd like you to have a go yourself, try and copy one of the pictures, and then send in to me with what you have got.